Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. I'm your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to discuss. Let's waste no more time. Hashtag it up with us. Hashtag ODPH. Biggest sports story of the week had to be the week of the NFL.
Holy cow, there were some good games.
Very good games this week. Pad, you want to kick us off with your locks and leaps?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to start with my lock. It was the one I looked at last week, saw it, and went, I got to jump on this one. It was the Los Angeles Chargers.
No, say San Diego. You know you want to say San Diego.
Nope. Defeating the Arizona Cardinals handedly and covering the spread in a final score of 45-10. That's not even the big story coming out of that game. Big story coming out of that game is Phillip Rivers breaking an NFL record for consecutive completions to start a game. If you had him on fantasy, Lord knows you did well this week. 25 completions in a row before he missed one.
That is insane.
Which I saw a crazy stat. He had a better odds of getting struck by lightning that day than actually doing that. The odds of him getting struck by lightning were like 15,000 to 1. Odds of him completing 25 passes in a row were 86,000 to 1.
That is just wild to comprehend. You think of all the quarterbacks in the league throughout the history.
And there's a lot of good ones.
And there's a lot of great ones.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Rivers is up there, 28 for 29 to end the day, 259 and 3 touchdowns. And especially, they started off very rocky.
Yeah.
They were down 10-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, I remember being looking at the scores at one point because I knew I had this as my lock. I was like, oh, I wonder what the score is. And I saw it was like the second quarter, and the Chargers were losing like 10-3, and I was like, oh, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, with the Chargers, they're one of those teams that you don't know what you're going to get every week. On paper, they should be mowing teams down.
Oh, God, yeah.
They're great on both sides of the ball. But sometimes it just doesn't click for whatever reason. But like I said on the preview show, or for the NFL preview, rather, I still think they're going to be in the Super Bowl. I do. Don't ask me how, but they're clicking at the right time. Obviously, last week was a bad loss to Denver, but it's a division game, late-minute field goal. What can you say about it?
Yeah.
This week was a rebound game. They beat the team they should have beat. Arizona is struggling this year. It's not a pretty season by any means.
No.
And for the Chargers, this was a must-win to stay competitive in the AFC West, let alone the AFC playoff race, period. Because they're going to be trailing Kansas City no matter what.
Right.
And they're looking at a wild card spot. The season is now, we're entering into December. Every game matters that much more. And for a great team like Los Angeles, they need to win these games. There's no gray area. It's either win or go home at this point.
Right.
Because every other team is starting to catch a little heat. And obviously, again, those wild card spots are becoming so critical right now.
Well, the Chargers are definitely going to get a test in the next couple of weeks because during the game, Melvin Gordon left with a grade 2 MCL sprain. Now, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, he's definitely going to miss multiple games while recovering. Usually the injury, from what I've read, because I did a little bit of research, because I'm not a doctor. I'm no medical expert by any means. So I was like, grade 2 MCL. How bad is this going to be? Historically, players with a grade 2 MCL usually miss about 2 to 4 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chargers make up with no Melvin Gordon.
Well, the running game might suffer a little bit, and it all depends. But with Rivers and the wide receiver core that they have, I don't suspect a serious drop-off per se.
No.
It could happen. Gordon does. He's a whole different factor on that team.
Yeah.
So obviously they're going to have to change the blueprint a little bit. But Rivers has been around the block before, and he knows how to win with a great running back and without one.
Yeah.
And he'll find the way to make it happen.
So he can throw the ball 15 times, he can throw the ball 50 times.
Right. He's going to have to do what he has to do to win games. And it's a little more pressure is going to be on him, but it's nothing he's not used to.
No.
And for him, we talk about Breeze having a great season and Patrick Mahomes. Rivers is putting up some very good numbers in his own right. So moving forward with that, LA's got a bright future. They're going to have some tough games down the stretch here. But it all depends on if Rivers can stay consistent. Obviously, we're not going to see another back-to-back week of 25 completions.
No.
I would strongly doubt, but I've been wrong before. And his wide receiver core, as long as everybody stays healthy, they should be okay.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to run the table by any means, but they should be okay to get one of those wild card spots.
Oh, yeah.
Pat, what you got for your leap?
Well, my leap, I took a leap on this one because, like I said last week, Aaron Rodgers, Sunday night, prime time, he usually does something funny, something crazy. I was wrong on that one. Minnesota handedly defeated the Green Bay Packers by a final score of 24-17. Kirk Cousins going 29 of 38 for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers going 17 of 28 for 198 and 1 touchdown.
This one is always a fun rivalry to watch.
Yeah.
And like we say, Sound Guy Galore JR was probably going bananas wherever he was watching the game. Because obviously Green Bay was hanging in there. It wasn't a blowout by any means.
Yeah.
And it was very back and forth. But I think it just shows how depleted Green Bay might be this season. That they're not the Green Bay of old. And obviously they have Aaron Rodgers, arguably the best quarterback in the league. That does help you cover up, I guess, some holes in your offense.
Yeah.
That, would on another team with a lesser qualified quarterback, it would be exposed a lot more.
Yes.
So with Rodgers playing as well as he is, you have a shot in every game.
Right, and I know the issue with the Packers at least one point, I think it was in like the second quarter or maybe third quarter, they had one of their starting tackles come off the field for a couple plays with injuries, so then they brought in somebody to replace him, and then that guy got injured, and the first guy came back in. So there were all sorts of injury issues on both sides of the team, during this game.
Yeah, Green Bay has just got a ton of injuries this year, and it's coming back to show. I mean, they're walking wounded.
Yeah,
to put it mildly, it's just they're so beat up, and they're so just making do with what they have. So I mean, the fact they're staying in these games is truly a testament to their team. But you have to look at Minnesota, who's now it seems like they're getting on the right track. And obviously, in the NFC North, every game means that much more when you're facing your division rivals.
Oh, God, yeah.
So for the Vikings, this is a huge win. And I will say, arguably, does this knock the Packers out of the playoff race?
Not entirely if you listen to Aaron Rodgers' postgame, which I love this quote from him. Somebody brought it up to him in postgame, I don't remember the exact question, but he basically said, essentially we're not out of it, but we got to win it against Arizona, win against the Falcons, win against the Bears, win against the Jets, and win against the Lions. Essentially, they got to win out.
Which is going to be very tough to do. Even if you have the great Aaron Rodgers on your team, that's going to be tough.
Let's say Arizona and Atlanta, no disrespect to those fans, that's a win for Green Bay. The Bears, however, who knows? You've got Khalil Mack, the one-man wrecking crew on that team, and hurt Rodgers' knee week 1. So that's a toss-up, and I think given Green Bay's current state, there's no way they win that game.
You would have to think probably not with just how banged up the Packers are.
Because they're banged up. That game's in Chicago in December. Ooh, that's going to be real cold.
Well, it's going to be cold, but any other team I'd say would probably have to worry, but Green Bay's used to playing in those conditions.
That's true.
The one thing you got to remember, though, is with how banged up Green Bay is, and they're facing the Bears, and this is the first time since week 1, I believe. This is going to be having a little more emotion behind it.
Yeah.
And especially if the Bears can knock the Packers out of the playoffs. If they have a lockdown defensive game. Trubisky doesn't have to put up huge numbers, but he just has to go arm for arm with Rodgers enough that he can squeak the win out.
Right.
So if they can do that, that's a huge thing in their cap, and a huge thing for the Bears. Can they do it? Arguably.
Yeah.
Because, we don't know what's going to happen. The next couple games could be trap games, too.
This is true.
So for Rodgers and company, they got a lot to think about. And let me ask you this question, too, Pat. If the Packers don't get to the playoffs, does McCarthy keep his job?
Boy, yeah. I don't know how he does.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm not wishing anybody to get fired.
No.
But I have to wonder, if they don't make it to the playoffs, is this the final run for him?
I'd say so.
You have to argue that. It's something that could go back and forth. I know I've heard from a lot of Packer fans, especially Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. He's saying the writing's on the wall. If they don't make playoffs, he's gone.
Yeah.
And you almost have to think at this stage, maybe they need the change. I don't know. I'm not. It's one of those things. It's a catch-22.
And it's definitely one of those things you hear a lot in sports where you have a head coach who's been there for a long time, and they all of a sudden get fired almost out of the blue in certain cases. And the reason here is we just need a change in voice in the locker room.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a good thing, but it depends. It depends honestly on what they need to fix. And I think, but a lot of it is injuries. That's the thing. You can't blame a coach on injuries.
No.
So it's like, where does the finger blame go?
Yep.
Hard to say moving forward. And we also have to give credit to Adam Thielen, too, before we end the
Holy cow,
game.
yeah.
The streak is continuing, over 100 yards receiving.
Yep.
Breaking Randy Moss's record, I believe, too.
With Randy Moss in the house.
Yes. So, I mean, the Vikings, a lot of momentum, a lot of things to be happy about with this game.
Next week's, though, should be real interesting. Next week, they're traveling to New England to play the Patriots, and then the following week, they're traveling to Seattle to play the Seahawks on Monday Night Football.
Well, I mean, every game is going to matter that much more, as we said, with the Chargers. Same thing with the Vikings. When you have a highly contested division, every game matters that much more, and it's not going to be easy road to the playoffs if they're going to head there. So we'll have to wait and see. So going into my locks and leaps, my lock, I took Carolina at home.
Right.
And honestly, this was a very highly contested game, which came down to a late field goal to seal the deal, which is just a little wild for me. But I was watching with the one and only Nostradamus, Edwin Fortunato, who was going back and forth. And I mean, this game was hard hitting. It was almost a defensive struggle at one point. And obviously, the Seahawks did enough to win. I said on last week's show this was a potential playoff eliminator.
Well, yeah.
It may still be. I'm nothing against Carolina because they played their hearts out. I mean, Cam Newton went 25 for 30, 256, and 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Christian McCaffrey, 17 carries, 125 yards and a touchdown, 11 receptions, 112 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown.
Oh, yeah, and I got to say, special shout out to Tyler Lockett for doing the touchdown celebration, reenacting Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
That was incredible. But like you said, potential playoff eliminator, but yeah, not really. I mean, because I'm looking at the playoff standings in the NFC conference as they stand here as we record. And Carolina is currently sitting 6-5, but so are the Seahawks, Redskins, Minnesota Vikings are in there too, but 6-4-1. And the Dallas Cowboys, who are in 4th place, are all sitting at the same record.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to see how the playoffs are slowly shaping up right now.
And it's funny to just look at this playoff thing because you have New Orleans at 10-1, Los Angeles at 10-1, Chicago at 8-3, and then everybody else is 6-5.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show there's a lot of parity in the NFL, which is great. I mean, being a fan of the sport, you want this. You don't want anybody locking up the playoff spots in early November.
No.
This gives something to watch, and every team is still contending in this. And like I said, I consider this a playoff eliminator just because every team has identical records. It's going to come down to head-to-head at some point.
Yeah, head-to-head, divisional, whatever it is.
Yeah, however they decipher it out. So for Seattle, this was a huge win.
Yeah, you needed this one.
Absolutely, because if they didn't pull this one off, I'd say the same thing, that they were out of the playoffs.
Because it could very well come down to the final playoff spot. They have identical records, but hey, because Seattle beat them in this game, Seattle gets the nudge. Yeah,
it's going to be something to watch and see. And like I said, Carolina did play a solid game. And I mean, this was a very fun game to watch if you like fundamentals, so to speak, because this was just a defensive struggle. It was a bend but don't break. You really didn't see any crazy explosive plays, except McCaffrey. The one run he had, it was like literally everybody parted out of his way.
Oh, wow.
And he almost took it straight to the house for about 80 yards. It was something like that. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was something to watch. It was the highlight of the day from that game,
sure,
in my opinion. So going forward with that, I mean, Carolina has got a little more tougher challenge to get to the playoffs. Not saying they can't, but obviously when you're tied up with everybody else, you got to stand out some way or another.
Yeah, I'd say Carolina going out for the rest of the season are playing at Tampa Bay, at Cleveland, against the Saints, against the Falcons, and then at New Orleans to close out the year.
So it's definitely going to be something to watch and see. But Seattle definitely has, got to be feeling pretty good about their chances moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
So let us get to my leap.
Oh, boy, here he goes.
I have been waiting for this since Sunday. Waiting. Because obviously we've talked on previous episodes about Jalen Ramsey and his infamous GQ interview.
Calling out everyone.
Calling out everybody he can.
He thought about calling out us here on the panel.
Probably. I would say that's a very safe bet. I might even get some static after this. I don't care. Because he called out Bills quarterback Josh Allen. Called him trash, quote unquote.
Which is kind of rough on a rookie quarterback you've never seen.
Exactly. And I understand you want to create a little hype for your team and you want to do, make some noise. But you really shouldn't be calling that out, per se, if your team has not established a tradition of winning, shall we say.
Yeah.
a consistency of getting to the playoffs. You had a great year last year, sure. And maybe you were just kind of feeling your own swagger. Could be.
Could be.
But that's why they say you play to win the game. You don't play for the interview.
Shout out to Herm Edwards.
Absolutely. And the Bills showed up as I thought they would. Because the one thing you got to remember is if you were giving any team bulletin board material, and what I mean by that is if you were sitting there and giving some little more incentive to step up and play, this can backfire on your game plan all day, every day.
I was like, because I can see the Bills head coach walking into whatever meeting it is that week, and he go, maybe before he shows some film or he breaks down some gameplay plans or whatever, just throws up a PowerPoint, throws up a picture of that interview, then throws up a picture of what he said about Josh Allen.
And Josh Allen has been sitting there stewing about this, especially the Bills having that big win against the Jets, had the bye week, so they were getting all ready for Jacksonville to come into Orchard Park.
Oh, yeah.
And they stepped up to the challenge. There was no question about that. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. And they were looking incredible. In fact, Josh Allen, the one touchdown pass he had to Robert Foster for 75 yards. If you just watch it, he's getting hit, and he just dead arms that thing downfield, which is insane just how strong his arm is to get the ball down there. And then Jacksonville started coming back. And with Leonard Fournette healthy, they are a different team. And he was obviously working the run game. The Bills had no answer for it.
18 carries, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Right. And then we get into a very ugly situation.
So I went to a football game and a boxing match broke out.
Right. Because right in the third quarter late, there was a controversial touchdown that was called back for Jacksonville. And then all of a sudden a fight breaks out.
Yeah.
Now, details are kind of a little sketchy, and we still haven't figured out what exactly caused it. But the only thing we do know is Leonard Fournette and Bills defensive end Shaq Lawson decided to throw some hands.
It's like something was said about the other person, and the other person did not appreciate it.
I mean, this is just kind of wild to think because Jacksonville had the momentum at this time.
Right, and there's no previous animosity between these teams. It's not like the baseball a couple years ago where you had the Rangers and the Blue Jays in the playoffs and then come back the next season and there was a fight between those two. They're to my knowledge, I can't remember anything between the Bills and the Jags.
The only thing you could say is they do have a little bit of history.
Okay.
A little bit in the sense of, there was the playoff game last year.
Sure.
Maybe there was some lingering feelings from there. You had the Jalen Ramsey interview. Doug Marrone, former Bills head coach.
Oh, yeah.
And did not exactly
leave on the best terms?
Yeah, to put it mildly. So you factor all this in, and obviously I'm thinking it had more to do with the playoffs last year.
Could be.
But then you get into this situation, and obviously, like we said, there was a called back touchdown that the Bills defenders were fighting at the 1 yard line with Jacksonville's receivers. And then all of a sudden, people are swinging.
Yeah.
And you see Leonard Fournette swinging the hands.
And this could have gotten real ugly because at one point, the receiver, who I believe was Moncrief, and then the defender were still on the ground holding the ball. Neither one of them wanted to give it up. But then the fight was spilling towards the fans. And I was watching the highlight. I almost had a Malice at the Palace type scenario picturing going through my head where I'm like, this could get real ugly real quick.
Yeah, because the one thing about the Bills Mafia is... if they're putting themselves through tables, what do you think they're going to do when one of their own gets attacked?
I'll say, because I read something, I didn't see it, because Fournette was ejected. I read somewhere that somebody threw something at him when he was leaving.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, I read that someplace.
Like I said, the Bills Mafia is very defensive of their team.
This is true.
And especially if you're fighting that close to the stands. I'm just thankful nobody jumped in from the crowd.
That's what I was afraid of.
That's the first thing I thought of, because they were showing, too, earlier in the game that it looked like Fournette was pointing and yelling at somebody on the sideline.
Sure.
So I'm sitting there going oh, geez, did somebody throw something or do something?
Right, because not just Bills fans, but sports fans in general, especially when you're at the game, get passionate, to put it mildly. And like I said, I just had this weird feeling in the back of my mind, nobody jumped the wall and started fighting them, did they?
Yeah, which kudos to them, because obviously it's stupid for fans to jump in there. It's stupid to throw anything at a player. No matter what. I mean, you can get emotional about the game, sure, but you don't need to go to that level. And let alone for the players to act up like that, which Fournette was jumping in defending Carlos Hyde, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Because as far as I can remember, Fournette wasn't even on the field for that.
Right.
So the fact he jumped in and then obviously stuff's going on, and like I said, I could be wrong about Fournette jumping. It wasn't on the field for that. Hit me up on social media and correct me if I'm wrong. Either way, you're up. You have the momentum shifting in your favor, and you have to literally get yourself kicked out of a game.
Yeah.
Pointless. Absolutely pointless. And I understand the emotions are running high. But then they're still trying to fight each other in the tunnel getting out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Which they had to be separated. It's like one thing I was sitting there kind of watching, I'm going, why are they taking them out at the same time? Move one first and then the other. Get calmer, cooler heads prevailing.
Right.
But this was enough of a spark for the Bills to get momentum back on their side.
I think the issue Jacksonville might have taken with this whole thing is part of it is frustration on their part. Going into the season with all the swagger, admittedly, some of it was a lot of self-proclaimed. Mm-hmm. Going into the swagger, we're great. We made it to the AFC Championship game last year. We're going to do real good. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And then they come into the season, they beat the Giants, they beat the Patriots, they lose to Tennessee, they beat the Jets, and then they go and they're on a 7-game losing streak.
It is true. I mean, I'm not saying that maybe last season they were taken too lightly, but you have to look at it and the play on the field right now. Now, granted, Fournette's been injured for a good chunk of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Can't argue that. He's not on the field. It's a totally different ballgame. You could take a look at this game as prime example. There's no question of that.
Yeah.
He is their star running back. Carlos Hyde is a good running back, but he's not their all-star. He's not their all-pro. So you take Fournette out of the equation and you make Blake Bortles try to beat you. Obviously, he started struggling. And the one thing that Jacksonville surprisingly went away from was the run.
Yeah.
Why are they starting to throw the ball late in the fourth quarter? Or early in the fourth quarter, rather. They had to do it late because by this time they're down. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen had a 14-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter. And then when it starts getting to that situation, the momentum has shifted. And honestly, Jacksonville looked deflated after that happened. They had nothing in the tank. Blake Bortles is trying to do whatever he can to come back, but unfortunately, couldn't pull it off. I mean, granted, he got a touchdown late to get him within 3.
Sure.
But obviously, if you got to go by an onside kick to win the game, your odds are not in your favor.
I'll say hey, shout out to the Bills. You hit the Jaguars so hard, they fired their offensive coordinator today. And then they're benching Blake Bortles in favor of backup Cody Kessler, who will take off for the rest of the season, beginning with Sunday's game against the Colts.
That's just insane. To think about how Jacksonville, and remember, when they beat the Patriots, everybody was counting them as Super Bowl contenders.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about it.
Everybody said, punch them in. They're going. Now,
3-8.
3-8. What is going on there? And now you bench Bortles after you gave him that huge contract extension.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm not saying there's a lot of problems in Jacksonville, but there is definitely some issues that need to get hammered out. Mm-hmm. I mean, the season, I think at this point, is a wash.
Yeah, essentially, yes. There's no earthly way I can see them running the table with as bad and dysfunctional as things look, running the table and somehow making the playoffs.
And now you're benching Bortles.
I'll say, because if they even run the tables and make it to the playoffs, do you really expect them to beat Kansas City or New England?
No.
Or even Pittsburgh, as good as Pittsburgh's getting?
They would be the 6th seed if they got in. And then they would arguably be facing Pittsburgh.
Right. And Pittsburgh's going to punch them in the teeth.
Pittsburgh did.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. So, and obviously, it would be a different ballgame because of the playoffs, sure. But at the same token, Jacksonville is just looking deflated and broken.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you the opinion that, I mean, with Fournette in the lineup, it's a different team. But he got himself kicked out, and, I mean, that's just tensions boiling over. Jalen Ramsey did not have a shutdown game on Josh Allen.
No.
Allen shut him up.
Hey, but shout out to Ramsey, though. He did go up to him. It was like the first player on the Jacksonville Jaguars team to go congratulate him. So I got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, at least he manned up to it.
Yeah.
I mean, his post game, he was kind of just saying, "I gave my opinion. And that's my opinion." And he
sure.
did, but he goes, "Allen did enough to win the game." So, and I really don't think he cares what I have to think. Arguably, I got to agree with him.
Yeah.
Because Allen and company, granted, they would need a lot of luck to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But crazier things have happened.
This is true.
They would need to run the table. They got Miami twice coming up, the Jets, Detroit, and the Patriots. Mm-hmm. Not looking great on paper, but nobody circles those wagons like those Buffalo Bills.
This is true.
But let us know what you think. Hashtag it up with us, ODPH. What's your thoughts on this past week of the NFL action? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Rob Kacharik from the band 607, Autopilot Off, and Walking Distance. and you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH, and we got to talk a little hot stove baseball talk here.
Because one came across the wire that caught a few eyebrows.
Yeah, which I still am not believing, I'm not buying into, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on.
Sure.
Robinson Cano coming back to the Bronx.
Right, because of course we all remember, I think I talked about it a couple episodes ago. If I didn't, well, I'm talking about it now. Mariners are on a wholesale fire sale circa like the Florida Marlins from like 2003, where everybody's available. You want them? Come get them.
Mm-hmm. And now Cano is one of the highest paid names that is getting mentioned of coming back east, either to the Yankees or the Mets.
Right.
I am not buying this Yankee talk
No.
at all.
No.
At all.
No, because of course the thing of it is Robinson Cano is like he's 36 years old, and he's owed $120 million over the next 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So there go, he'd be paid if they keep him. Now they could always put him on waivers, release him, whatever the heck they want to. But I think where the Yankees momentum or turn, whatever you want to call it, is to get younger. Get younger. Why would you want it? Now, admittedly, he is a very good player. He can still hit. He can still field. But where your focus has been for years, well, you got to get younger. We got to stay away or turn away from the ways of the past that haven't done us any success, where we bring in the big name stars who are aging. Why would you want to bring a guy? Why would you want to add another monster contract, for 5 years, $120 million when he's 36 years old? Why do you want to deal with another potential A-Rod situation where he's going towards 40 and you're still paying him a ton of money?
See, for me, I just remember how he left. And,
yeah.
And he didn't want to stay in the Bronx. He wanted to go where the big money was.
And say he paid for a 1 month early vacation.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm sorry, wait. Refresh my memory. The Mariners have made the playoffs how many years since he got there?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They haven't. So how, he thought the grass was going to be greener out west. That's his prerogative. I can't be mad about that. But at the same token, you didn't want to play for the Bronx, and you didn't want to play for the Yankees when you had the chance.
Yeah.
You decided to go for the bigger money. Congratulations. You got paid. Great. Why would the Yankees entertain the thought of him coming back when they're building youth?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole thing, is adding Cano back to the lineup going to help them get to the World Series and win it. Mm-hmm. I honestly don't see it.
No. Especially a second baseman. They don't need him at second base. The only real spot that I've read some people guess that he, if, and this is a large all capital if, he comes back, would be a first baseman or a designated hitter, which, no.
Yeah. This just doesn't.
I'm not paying a guy $120 million, to basically be a glorified hitter.
Right.
And I realize, I know some people are going to chime in, well, you got Giancarlo Stanton playing down. Well, yes, that's because we got the outfield issues, and we got 5 outfielders in 3 positions.
Right, but Stanton can be a designated hitter, though. I mean, that fills his role.
Yeah.
So I get that point. And that's why I say, to add Cano at this stage in the game makes no sense whatsoever. None. You can't tell me different. What are you going to say? Oh, he's a veteran leader in the clubhouse?
A veteran leader who abandoned them.
Yeah, he wanted out. He didn't want to stay there and play.
No, because they offered him a contract. I don't remember the exact details, but it was nothing near what Seattle offered him. And he chose, I want the money.
Yeah, and which is fine. Like I'm stressing. I'm not mad he went. He took the bigger payday. Great. That was his choice. But if you want to say you want to be part of this team and part of what's happening now, I don't see the fit for you. No. I really don't. Because now they do have an established team. I mean, granted, they're young, but adding you to that lineup takes away a spot from somebody else that is going to be the long-term answer while you're going to be a short-term answer at best.
Yeah.
Simply put, there just doesn't make any sense. Now, if you went to the Mets, that's a different story.
Mets I could see.
But at the same token, what are they willing to give up to get him out of Seattle?
Right, and plus the Mets, if I'm not mistaken, have that new general manager. So you could be looking to make a big splash, something flashy, something shocking. Yeah, maybe.
But is that the biggest splash you could make? Like, I guess I'm looking at this free agency
it's
class.
the biggest splash they could make that isn't named Harper or Machado.
Right. Well, that's the 2 biggest names that are getting thrown out there. And I'm still not buying either one of them coming to the Yankees either.
Nope.
I still think Machado stays in L.A., and I still think that Harper winds up being a Chicago Cub.
I wouldn't doubt that, but the stuff I've been reading the last couple of days sounds like Philly has got a big old hole burning in their wallet, and they're not afraid to pay. Now, the contrast with that is, I've also read they're not going to wait around for Harper or Machado to make their decisions. If they get other people, they can sign other free agents before Harper and Machado make a deal, and they're on their wish list, they're going to sign them.
Well, you have to do what's best for your team. I mean, obviously, the stats don't lie. Harper and Machado put up big numbers. Mm-hmm. We get that.
Yeah.
I fully get that. But you also have to run your team. And now if you take a look, this pains me to say, take a look at the Red Sox.
Sure.
They have some big names on their team.
Yeah.
But overall, a lot of that is homegrown talent. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, they've got a couple bit names on there. They're not like AAA, you're going to trade for them on the video game names.
Right.
But you know who they are.
Exactly. And they're putting up solid numbers in comparison. They win as a team.
Yeah.
The overall thing when you sign a player is you want them to help you win a championship.
Yeah.
Granted, you have some superstar players, but what have they done in the postseason?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be the first thing I would look at. And especially if you're entertaining them, bringing them to a market such as New York,
mm-hmm.
such as Boston,
mm-hmm.
such as Philly.
Yep.
You have to factor this into play.
We'll say the Yankees have dealt with circuses before. I don't think they want to do it again.
No, but I don't think, why would you disrupt that team?
No.
Just to add a name? I don't understand why. And then you bring Machado in, then what do you do with Didi?
Exactly.
That for a 1-year rental, that just doesn't make sense to me.
No.
This is just pointless. But getting back to the Cano situation, this is the same kind of deal. It's like when you're adding players to your team, what is the value? And at this stage, I don't see it. There's nothing that I see that goes, you know what, he's going to help us get to the World Series and he's going to help us beat Boston.
I've watched a player in his mid to late 30s play in New York for a high contract within recent history. Don't want to do it again.
No, it just doesn't make sense, especially you're on a youth movement.
Yeah, which all of baseball is. Now, I'm not saying there's no room for Cano in the game. There is.
There is, but but it's highly speculated that the Yankees were interested. I just don't buy it.
No.
I think it's a lot more hype generated to himself. I could see Cano going to a different team in the East. I could see him definitely heading back, whether it's AL or NL.
Sure.
But I think the NL would be a better fit for him. I truly do.
I could see the NL more likely.
Yeah, but you can't do a crazy, year contract, especially at his age.
No.
I mean, that's the one problem when you sign players to over 5-year deals. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right, and I know this is something you and I talked about when he signed for Seattle for, what was it, like 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Something absurd. We're looking at it going, okay, he's going to be how old by the time he finishes his contract? Yeah, no, thanks for leaving.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing. You can't sign anybody over 5 years. I stick to my guns about this one. Hit me up on social media if you want to discuss this further.
I think the only way you can possibly do it is if they are like stupid young like Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg were. Like when they first came in, they're in like their mid to late 20s. Then I can understand maybe 6 years because I'm like, all right, you're going to get them right at the kind of maybe twilight of their career. But no, when you're talking like, if I'm not mistaken, Cano is in his early 30s. I'm like, no.
No, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, because obviously nobody beats Father Time. We have said this on the show many times. The skill set diminishes over time. That being said, to sign anybody over 5 years is a gamble in itself. Signing anybody to 10 is ludicrous.
Oh, absolutely.
1,000%. Name me one 10-year contract that is paid out from beginning to end consistently.
Insert crickets here.
Exactly. There's a reason you don't do it. Now, I could understand if it's a franchise guy. Like I remember when Albert Pujols left St. Louis. And a lot of fans were really speculating, well, you went to Anaheim for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I was.
So in that situation, yeah, that's the face of your franchise.
Yeah.
I get it, but obviously the Cardinals looked a lot better.
Yeah.
For not bending to the fan base.
I will say, no, obviously they haven't been winning World Series every year, but even still, they're not like bottom cellar dwellers, really struggling. They've been good.
No, they've been consistently good, and they've been hanging in there. I mean, the NL Central is what it is.
Yeah.
And they're always in the race one way or another.
They're always making a run at least mid-season, if not late in the season.
Yes, because when you tie up that much money with one player,
mm-hmm.
The focus has to be to your team. And I'm not saying it wasn't worth it at the time with Pujols. I don't argue with what Anaheim did. Me personally, if I was GM, I would never do it.
I would have given him a decent, pretty long contract for the player he was, but I would not have given him 10 years.
No, I would give 5. I don't bend at 5. For me, you get basically the best of what you can get out of them. And then if you want to talk player and team option, sure. But to go 10 years, I mean, it just hasn't panned out. Look at the history.
Yeah, A-Rod.
Pujols, A-Rod.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only one you may, and I stress you may consider would be Mike Trout.
Yeah.
But that's a maybe at best, too, even with him.
Yeah, because the jury's still out. I mean, he's been consistent now.
Mm-hmm.
We got to wait and see.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you're in a win-now mentality, yeah, it makes sense. But you also have to deal with if you don't win now. Because if you have that much, if you have every aspect of your team locked up except that one player in that one position, then the deal makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you don't, and you have holes in your pitching staff, your relief, your infield, your outfield, whatever you have, multiple ones, you're tying up so much money on one player, you're not going to get anywhere with it.
Which was one of the issues the Mariners had when they signed Cano to that big money deal. It's, okay, you want to build a team around Cano. I get that. At the time, that made a you-know-what amount of sense. Mm-hmm. But, like you said, you're locking up how much money into one player where you have needs at almost every position?
Yeah. And
what are you doing?
And for the Yankees, the need isn't the hitting.
No.
It's the pitching.
They're good in the hitting. They set a major league record for home runs last year.
Yeah, but if they're smart, stop worrying about so many home runs. Worry about the small ball.
This is true.
That's the thing that killed them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do that, does it make sense to get Cano? I don't think so.
No. A couple other minor things. The Braves have re-signed Brian McCann. He's going back to Atlanta. Atlanta not done yet. They signed Josh Donaldson for a 1-year, $23 million deal.
Whew.
Oh, yeah. And then another interesting thing came from Ken Rosenthal. Ken Rosenthal, busy guy today. The Cardinals at one point kicked around the idea for trading with the Arizona Diamondbacks for Paul Goldschmidt and Zach Greinke. Holy cow.
If they could have pulled that off, that would have been very pricey.
Yeah.
I can't see the Cardinals doing that for both of those guys.
No.
I couldn't see them doing it for Greinke. I don't.
Greinke at this point in his career is a very much more of a risk than a reward for me.
Right. But I can't see him dumping that much money because it would take a lot to move him.
Yeah.
It would take a lot. So, but that just goes to show the Cardinals are always known for building through their farm system.
Mm-hmm.
They always have. They don't really make super crazy free agent signings.
This is true.
But who knows? Maybe they'll be looking at Cano too. We don't know. But definitely let us know what you think. What's your thoughts on Robinson Cano coming to the Yankees or the Mets, or where do you think he winds up? What's the biggest free agency rumor you've heard? We want to know. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Coming back for the third segment on this week's ODPH, and we got to talk a little MMA action.
Uh-huh.
And no, we're not talking Josh Allen's TKO of Jalen Ramsey and the Jacksonville Jaguars 24-21 this past week. No.
I see what you did there.
I'm still amped up about it. The Bills-Jaguars segment that we did earlier is heavily edited because I was kind of losing my cookies here.
This is true.
So, thus, I think I even forgot to say the score. But regardless, that was a TKO win there.
Mm-hmm.
Albeit, though, there was another MMA fight this weekend that I struggle with.
Hey.
We didn't talk about it on the show, but we've had some listeners hit us up on social media and ask us what's our thoughts on this.
Oh boy.
Pad, you want to give the setup?
Well, so if any, even casual, even light MMA fan, you bring up the name Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, fond memories, I would say, come back, from their glory days in the UFC and kind of the early days of the UFC. What we witnessed on Saturday night was possibly the furthest thing from that I think we could ever get. Of course, we all remember, the two previous memorable bouts between Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. The second one taking place on December 30th, 2006, with Chuck Liddell winning by a technical knockout at 3:59 of round 3. So when it was announced that, matchup number 3 was taking place between the aforementioned fighters, Ortiz and Liddell, many, including myself and our host Ken, went, why? It's been, as I said, 12 years since they lost fight. It's been possibly that long, if not longer, since Chuck fought. So, why?
Honestly, I don't know. And I struggled when I heard this fight was even getting signed.
Uh-huh.
Because for me, when I first got into the UFC, Chuck Liddell was the face of the organization.
Yeah.
He was, dare I say, the Conor McGregor without the theatrics.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck was always a quiet guy, but he had the overhand right that could knock anybody out at any given time.
You don't get the nickname the Iceman for nothing.
No, and he was just, I mean, that was the peak of his prime right around that time when he fought Tito the second time.
Yeah.
Light heavyweight champion, the face of the organization. And obviously, Father Time catches up with the best of us.
Uh-huh.
And I get this. And it pained me when Rich Franklin knocked him out with a broken arm.
Yeah.
The chin just went. And I get it. And it hurt watching. It did.
Yeah.
Because Chuck was one of my favorite fighters.
It's almost like watching your hero lose in a comic book.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, all right. Because he was winning that fight, too. And he got caught.
Yeah.
But obviously, you get knocked out at that stage. And obviously, Chuck has taken a lot of fights over the years.
Yeah.
I don't fault him. I mean, he went out on his shield. And as far as I knew, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, he was offered a lifetime job with the UFC in some capacity.
That's what I'd heard.
I heard that too. Dana was going to take care of him because Dana and Chuck have always had a very good relationship.
Yeah,
always have since day one.
Yeah.
So the fact that now we're hearing, okay, he was going to get into a rematch with Tito, no less. I mean,
right.
And obviously Tito Ortiz, he's had a historic and controversial UFC career.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Yeah,
but Tito is still Tito. Tito has been fighting longer, than Chuck has, obviously. So the fact that you're doing the rematch 12 years later, I can't really see anybody who's screaming, yeah, I need to see this.
Right. It's like doing a fight 12 years later where you brought up the fight against Rich Franklin where he lost and you could see the kind of the crack, chink in the armor. He hasn't gotten any younger. His body hasn't gotten any younger. The man turns 49 in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Tito Ortiz is 43. He turns 44 in January.
Yeah, and one thing about
this fight ain't getting better with age.
No, it's not getting better with age. I mean, I don't see the point of why it even happened. And for me, I struggle with this because you almost have to wonder, does this tarnish Chuck's legacy?
A little bit.
But this is why I struggle. It's because when he lost to Franklin, everybody kind of knew that was it.
Yeah.
And we all got it. And and I can understand, if you're a fighter, do you want to hear that you have to stop fighting? Nobody wants to hear that. So obviously it's a struggle for him to do. And I get that. But why, at this stage in the game, would you think, I mean, granted, he's had very good luck against Tito. Tito is no spring chicken either.
No.
But why would you do that? And let alone when we saw the fight.
Yeah. Which, if you really want to see it, we're not recommending it. If you really want to, you can find it online. Legally, you can find it online.
You can go track it down, I'm sure, if you have means to find it. Either way, I'm trying to even think of something good to say about it, and I really can't.
Herb was pretty quick on the stop. I'll say that was good.
Well, it was, but I mean,
because for those who don't know, Ortiz won. He knocked out Liddell, and it wasn't one of those. Okay, you should have stopped. No, Herb was very quick on the getting in between him to stop him. So I will say that. Yeah, it was. It was a first round TKO, and just for me, I struggle with it because just Chuck looked awful. Yeah, I'm really you can hear the pain in my voice when I'm describing. Yeah, this. I haven't been watching MMA as long as you have. I was uncomfortable watching Liddell's quote unquote performance. It was not pretty in the nicest of terms. It was ugly. And it was ugly for both of them. There was one point in the match where Ortiz went to do a spinning head kick, and it was like trying to watch a toddler trying to do a cartwheel. It wasn't pretty. No, the highlights that we've seen with this fight is just Chuck looks old and he looks slow. Yeah, and I hate saying this. The reactions aren't there. The speed really isn't there. No, he looked awful. It was an ugly performance. You can tell by my voice here. I'm struggling to even find words to describe this because for me, I don't get why this fight even happened. No, I don't either.
I don't understand why.
I know a few big MMA fans. I can't tell you if any of them ever wanted to see Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell 3 because none of them said it. Nobody wanted to see this fight. The only reason I can see this fight was made was maybe a cash grab.
Well, it would make sense, and I guess for the nostalgia reasons. But but then again, it's not like Cormier Bones 3. Which, I mean, if Coach Duffy was here, you'd hear him, saying that's the money fight. That's the one you want to see. There is interest in that.
Sure, but it's not 12 years after the last time they fought.
Exactly, and you have both guys on the other side of 40.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You take a look at
one who's on the doorstep of 50.
Right, but you take a look at when fighters are stepping away from the fight game. The average age is usually the late 30s.
Yeah.
You have your occasional Randy Coutures who fought in his early 40s.
Sure.
You have fighters that do that from time to time.
It's not always pretty, but they do it.
It's not always pretty, but to fight at that level and to be fighting consistently at that elite level, it's no easy task. And especially with how Chuck was fighting prior to his Rich Franklin fight. He was, you could start seeing the skills slowly start diminishing.
Yeah.
I hate saying this. I really do. So now I'm sitting here watching, whatever you want to call that, because I don't even want to call that a fight. I'm struggling for the words here.
Yeah.
Because, one, I don't think the fight should have ever happened.
No.
Two, okay, I get that it did take place. I never want to see it again.
No.
I really don't. I have zero interest in seeing it again. In fact, I don't even want to say where you can go find it. Like, honestly, I think it was that bad of a fight.
It really wasn't. I mean, the only thing to really come out of this, I haven't seen anything from Chuck Liddell. I would guess he's going back into retirement. I would hope he goes back into retirement.
The only thing I heard is he said we'll see. But obviously, what are you gonna say at that point?
But I mean, Tito Ortiz did appear on Ariel Helwani's MMA show where he did announce his retirement, saying, "quote There's no reason to come back and fight anybody else. Who is there? There's no one else out there. I fought the who's who. I've done what I needed to do." Okay, close quote. Okay, you did what you need to do. You're like 1-2 against Chuck Liddell. Great career, but why did you do this in the first place?
Well, I think for them, their rivalry is very personal. I get that.
Sure.
And I could see that maybe that's why. And then, obviously, and we want to stress, this was not a UFC fight.
No.
This was under the Golden Boy Promotions, which is Oscar De La Hoya.
And if I'm not mistaken, from an article I read, it was their MMA debut.
Right. That being said, the book is done with those guys. Done. I don't want to hear about them trying to come back in the cage. Especially Chuck. Like I say, this pains me. I am a very big Chuck Liddell fan, and I remember Chuck in his prime, where that overhand right was knocking people out left and right. I didn't see that Chuck on Saturday.
No.
Or whenever we watched it. I can't even remember. Like, this is how, you could tell I'm getting angry about this.
Mm-hmm.
That was not Chuck. I don't know who that was. But it's done. It's over. Let us not see it again. Ever. For both of them. Because both of them have had great careers.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Tito do coaching. In fact, if you want to put him back on The Ultimate Fighter, if they're going to do that season, because obviously they're moving to ESPN, I'd be okay with it.
See, that makes more sense for him to make any sort of a comeback, and I use that term lightly, like I'll say comeback back into the forefront of the MMA community. That would make all the sense in the world for him to come and do, coach each season of the Ultimate Fighter. Wouldn't make any sense for him to come back and fight, yet he did.
No, and that's the thing. But, obviously, hey, if they're going to get paid, I can't say no. Why would you not go for a paycheck? But for me, I'm thinking legacy and just both these guys. Listen, great careers, but the time has passed, and it's tough for me as a fan to sit there and say this was a great fight because it wasn't.
No,
and it just I hate saying it, but it's now it's time for other endeavors. Like I said, I'd love to see Tito do coaching again.
Yeah,
like he was great on The Ultimate Fighter, and he was a great coach. Chuck, I wouldn't mind seeing him doing commentary. I wouldn't mind that.
We'll say they might need a color commentator for when UFC goes over to ESPN.
This is true. I mean, that wasn't the only big fights going on this weekend, too, just to bring it back full circle. Francis Ngannou defeated Curtis Blades.
Oh, yeah, he did.
So now, welcome back, Francis. It's been a while. We haven't seen you in a bit.
This is very true.
That was a great knockout, and definitely where we all thought he has disappeared from the heavyweight title contention, that has quickly gone away very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, since we were talking about fighters returning to the cage,
Okay.
Anderson Silva
My ears just perked up a little bit.
is returning
Okay.
to fight Israel Adesanya.
Okay.
They verbally agreed to fight at UFC 234. Okay, this is another one I don't want to see.
No.
Because Adesanya is basically Silva now
Yeah.
in his prime. Like,
Yeah.
the kid is unbelievable. And Silva is on that other side of 40.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, we'll see what he's got. And just for him, he's another person. I don't want to see the legacy tarnished.
No.
You've had such a great career. There's no shame in just bowing out gracefully. There isn't.
No.
And I guess I struggle with this because, like I say, I always want to remember these guys at the top of their game and being such an elite fighter. And you have to give Silva the credit he deserves.
Absolutely.
He's arguably in the GOAT conversation. He's
Yeah.
arguably, pound for pound during his prime, the guy.
Oh, yes.
You can't even question it.
No.
So to see him get back in the cage at this stage against Adesanya, I don't know what to expect. Except if he gets a crazy knockout, that's great. But I think
Good for him.
Adesanya's going to run through him.
I would imagine so.
I truly do. But that's all our MMA talk for this week. So hit us up on the hashtag ODPH. Join in the conversation. What was your thoughts on the whole Liddell Ortiz fight? Are you excited about Anderson Silva returning to the cage? Francis Ngannou back to his knockout ways? We want to know. Hit us up. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Citoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH. And Pat, we got that local minute?
Got to talk a little Binghamton Devils. It was a rough week for our Devils last week. Had 4 games against, 1 against the Toronto Marlies, 2 against the Syracuse Crunch, and then 1 against the Rochester Americans. Lost all 4 games. Although we were at the game on Wednesday against the Syracuse Crunch. It was a good game. A little rough and a little bad officiating.
Yeah, you know, it's one thing you get with hockey. It's like sometimes the calls go your way, sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the Devils, I mean, they play tough.
They're scrappy.
They're scrappy. They're not going to blow you away with any highlights. We've discussed this previously. And they were definitely hanging in there a little bit, but it's just a little too much too late.
Mm-hmm.
And Syracuse is no slouch of a team in its own right. So you have to give the Devils their due, pun intended.
Yeah.
And, obviously it was a rough week to say the least.
Yeah.
Going into it. So with the Devils, I mean, obviously they got some work to do. They're back this Wednesday, November 28th, and Saturday, December 1st, if I am not mistaken.
Yep.
So definitely more information on that, binghamtondevils.com. Go out and support your Devils hockey team locally. And the Binghamton Bulldogs are back this week. They're home Saturday night against Scranton. Binghamton Bulldogs for more information on that.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we go into those round the bases? Pat, what you got for us this week?
A little bit of interesting NBA news. Of course, we talk NBA. Everyone's kind of looking at the Golden State Warriors and the class standard that they are. Article came out today from the Mercury News reporter Logan Murdoch that Boogie Cousins, DeMarcus, who obviously missed his targeted return date for training camp and was cleared earlier this month for full scrimmage work, is targeting his debut sometime after Christmas, after he has not played a game since he tore his Achilles tendon back in late January. So something to keep an eye out on. No clear date, but, with Christmas just under a month away, Boogie coming.
That's only going to either help or just really hurt the Golden State Warriors, because obviously this has not been the Golden State team of old.
No.
So obviously they're having some struggles. So what's going to happen from here on out? It's a great question to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And with Boogie coming in there, who knows?
Yeah, this is very true.
You want to talk about a big X factor? You can't get any bigger than that.
Nope.
So for my segment, we're We're going to talk a little fighting. And no, we're not going to talk about Josh Allen knocking out Jalen Ramsey yet again, 24-21 on Sunday. No, we're not going to talk about that.
Did that happen?
Oh, I think it did.
Okay.
And I'm going to keep talking about it all week. We're not going to talk about whatever happened with Tito and Chuck.
Please, let's not.
No, that's done. Over and done with. There is a very big boxing match this weekend.
Okay.
Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. Now, this has huge heavyweight ramifications because Anthony Joshua is waiting in the wings. Deontay Wilder was supposed to fight him. The fight never went down. Wilder is the WBC heavyweight champion of the world, 40-0, 39 knockouts. Tyson Fury, no slouch himself. This is going to be a very hard-hitting fight. Now, the fight that is going to make a lot of sense if they can ever book it is Wilder versus Joshua. This needs to happen. Now, I'm not saying I'm rooting against Tyson Fury because I really don't have any fighter I'm leaning for either way. But if I have to make a prediction about this, I am taking Wilder. I think Wilder's skill set is just a little sharper at this stage. I definitely think he's going to win this one. I'm going to say a late ninth round knockout. I'll give you that. And then the fight boxing needs to book is Wilder versus Joshua. Hands down. If they can't pull this off, I don't see another super fight coming down the road. And I'm sure you want me to say Canelo Triple G3, but I'm not going to say that. I want to, but obviously I think Triple G was robbed past couple times. We don't need to get into that. But anyway, the fight is going to be taking place on Showtime pay-per-view this weekend, so make sure to check it out if you are interested in watching that. We are actually going to get a guest blog from the common man Vince Ciatoli from Crow's Nest MMA on this.
Okay.
Because he was actually more wound up about this than any other fight going on this weekend, because we actually thought the UFC fight between Brian Ortega and Max Holloway was happening this weekend. That's next weekend. And even Vince was saying, I don't care. Wilder Fury. Wilder Fury. All I got to say. So expect to see that on the Daily Dice section of the ODPH website when it comes out later this week. So let's get into those locks and leaps for this week. Pad, what you got for us?
Well, I took a look at the schedule for this week, and I took at some of the lines, and some of them jumped out at me. There's a couple that surprised me. I'm like, wow, that's a little surprising. Whoever one I looked at instantly was like, holy cow, got to take it. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Oakland Raiders. Ken, you want to take a guess at what the line is on this one?
Kansas City, Oakland Raiders. 14.
15. Kansas City by 15. I'm taking the Chiefs to win that, and they're going to cover. Lord knows they're going to cover that spread easily.
Fair enough.
Then looking at the leaves, I was kind of struggling because a lot of games are like almost double-digit point favorites in this. But there was one real close one that I'm looking at. I'm like, you know what? I think they're going to win this one. San Diego, there you go. San Diego Chargers against the Pittsburgh Steelers this week.
There we go.
LA Chargers versus Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Pittsburgh is a 3.5 point favorite. I don't know, something about, you got two teams clicking at the right time. Just something about Phillip Rivers. I don't think he's going to do 25 completions in a row again, but I think he's going to be able to win this one out against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's going to be a highly contested game. I don't doubt it. It's going to be something to watch because the Steelers and Chargers, the game is going to be on Sunday Night Football, so you never know what's going to happen there. Mm-hmm. So, it could just get wild and crazy there, without question.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be probably the best game to watch this weekend, I got to say, by far, coming up this upcoming week. So, let's see. For my locks and my leaps. Now, there's a lot of good games going on. There's no question about this. So, for my lock, I'm going to drink some Kool-Aid.
Okay.
I don't know why. Because I didn't see a lot against Minnesota. But I am going to take those Green Bay Packers, favored by 14, at home against Arizona.
This is one of the ones that jumped out at me.
This is one that jumped out, and I'm probably going to kick myself for doing this. But Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau off a bad loss is a scary, scary mix.
And just so you know, in case you're curious, because it's Arizona going to Green Bay, weather forecasted on Sunday is currently PM rain and snow showers, high of 38 with winds about 8 miles an hour. It's going to be cold.
It's going to be cold. It plays right into the Packers' favor. So I got to say, if they're going to make the run, and Aaron is telling me to RELAX, then this is the time to show up and do it. And for my leap.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of leaps I should take. There's a lot. But you know what? I'm circling those wagons one more time.
Ooh.
Because I'm not afraid of a team from Florida. No. We already took it to one. We beat Jalen Ramsey and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
This is true.
Now it's rivalry week. And I'm not afraid of those Miami Dolphins. No. The Bills have to play them twice in December. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a very, very big series for them. Because if the Bills are ever going to try making a run for the playoffs, and granted, the chances they're going to get in, it's a little tough. Currently 4-7. So they have to win the next 5 to get 9-7, and then maybe, just maybe, there's a shot. So I'm saying it's going to start now. The Bills are 5-point dogs heading into Miami.
Okay.
They're coming off a big win. It's going to be a big-time game down in Miami Sunday afternoon. Time to circle those wagons, boys. Josh Allen, what you got? Show us what you got. And lead us to victory one more time. I'm going to say 17-14 Bills.
Okay.
I'll even give you a point spread on that. But let us know what your locks and leaps are, because we want to know. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. That's all we got for this week. So for Padawan J,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. We'll see you next time.